Welcome to the podcast where passion and purpose collide. We are here today with John Francis, who you might know as Johnny Franchise. He is with us today to talk about a couple of things. Firstly, he has 30 years in the franchising industry as both franchisor and franchisee with multiple brands and sometimes at the same time. He's an advisor to 50 plus franchisees. He's got international experience, has worked on multiple boards. But one of the things that we think is special about him is a project that he has started called Father's Eve. So we are going to delve into all of those things and how that has played into a theme of his life. So John, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Nice to meet you. Nice to be here.
Yay. We're so excited. You are officially our token man. You know that.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, Rebecca. It's very generous of you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, one of the things Elizabeth and I frequently talk about with our guests is a kind of a purpose or a moral to a story or a theme in someone's life. And I'm wondering, when you look back at your life, if you could see a theme that kind of carved you into who you are.
Well, I think of myself as a lucky kid, right? I grew up in a family of 5 kids with a mom and dad who were both fabulous in their own ways. And my dad was a great entrepreneur in a lot of things he did, and hair salons and franchising hair salons was, the biggest thing I guess he did. And that's what I grew up with. So I grew up in my family. It was a little different. By the time I was growing up as the youngest of 5, it was a different environment, right? There are 5 kids over 10 years. So my older siblings, grew up while my mother and father really didn't have much, and they worked really hard all the time. My dad traveled and really was a pretty heavy duty workaholic those years. And by the time I was growing up and old enough to pay attention, the business had been successful. So it had grown and they benefited from that. And then my dad had recognized that he kind of blew it with the older kids. He missed the opportunity to be around those kids and be active. So he changed his approach with me and a little bit with my next oldest sister. He was around the house a little more and he was a little more active, a little more intentional with the whole family, frankly. And he had health issues and he had cancer, and that was ultimately when he died was from his cancer. But anyway, growing up for me as a young man, a young boy, I was close to my dad, and he was available for me in a way that he really wasn't for my siblings. So that was a powerful. It took me a while to kind of understand that and appreciate it, but what it gave me was a great opportunity to learn in an environment full of opportunities. I mean, we had businesses, we had companies, we had activity. We had offices and warehouses and properties and real estate and stores and franchises and all kinds of stuff. And everything needed attention. So it was a lot of fun. And I learned a lot, and I learned early. I started early and I worked really hard, and I got a good work ethic from my dad and good character building, he would say. And a lot of things I learned from my dad. So I feel really lucky and grateful for that. And it gave me a great opportunity to grow as a professional, I guess, in our family's business, because there was opportunity there. And I took the opportunity and did the best I could. And we wound up selling that business, which was an unexpected but fantastic outcome, right? It really changed my career, but it gave me the possibility to do what I've done for the last 30 years, or I guess since we sold the family business the last 15 years as a consultant, an advisor, a franchisee, a franchisor, a shareholder, participant in lots of different brands. And so it's given me a great opportunity. And what I really learned is how franchising really suited, I think, my dad. And I was raised on this philosophy of find the win-win, the mutual win, the mutual benefit. Win-win-win is a likely outcome in franchising when everyone does their part. And I mean, the franchisor, the franchisee, and the suppliers, when everybody does what they're expected to do and does it well, collaboratively, it's a powerful multiplier. It's not just 1 + 1 + 1, it's a multiplier on that variable, and you get a tremendous growth. So I learned how to find that win-win, that mutual benefit, to use the I would guess shared values and create alignment, and then drive accountability for performance. And we did that with our businesses, and we had our wins and we had our failures. And I learned a lot at an early age, and then took all that with me to go do it several times over for myself. And I guess I still am. I still work with a number of brands, and I'm very active in some, and an advisor to others, and a coach to some, and an investor in others, and kind of all over the place. But it's a lot of fun to be able to help where I can find someone who I believe I can help. I try to do that, and there's no shortage of opportunity, that's for sure.
So John, I wanted to delve a little bit more deeply into the relationship with your father, because you talked about, I'm the oldest of 5, so I experienced the other end of that experience. And my husband's 1 of 5, and we have 5, so 5 is a big number for us.
Oh wow. Okay.
But the interesting thing to me is, when I worked for my dad, he was a lawyer, and I clerked for him in the summers. I worked for him. I ran his disability department for years. It's an interesting thing to meet your father as a professional instead of a father, or both, in both of those contexts. And I knew that he worked hard, but I didn't know how hard he worked. And I knew he was respected, but I didn't know how much he was respected until you're in it with them.
Yeah.
So what did that do to your perspective of him, your relationship with him, and who you wanted to grow into as you navigated your own professional life?
Well, that's a great question. And I appreciate you making me think about it, because working for my dad was interesting. It was he was pretty easygoing as a person, and I think I adopted his kind of style. I'm pretty easygoing, level-headed. I don't get too worked up about much, but working for him and seeing him as a professional that he was, and I mean, he was the founder, the chairman, he was like the man in the business. So that was impressive. And then what he did in franchising through the IFA and through other associations, he had an impact on a lot of companies, not just our family's business, but other industries and other brands and other people around. And that's why I think he was so well respected and so well known. My mom and dad are in the IFA Hall of Fame.
That's right.
Which is rare and really fantastic. So what that did for me, I learned, I kind of had a inkling of who he was, because by the time I was growing up, I could see people's reaction when he would show up, even at school or at family events and stuff. You could just see the way people responded to him. And I wouldn't say he was a celebrity, but he was really well known, and he was well loved and well liked for good reason. So I think for me, he had a way of keeping himself humble. I don't think my dad ever really developed a big ego, and I think he gave me that trait. I don't feel like I've ever suffered from an inflated ego very often. I think I keep my feet on the ground and remember who you are and where you came from and what you need to do. And so I think he gave me that point of view. And I guess for me personally, he gave me the ability to choose what I wanted to do. There was a point when he was sick and he was dying, and we all knew it. And we had our business, and I was a young executive and trying to do what I was supposed to do. I was trying to move up in that organization. And I remember asking my dad, we all know what's going to happen, Dad. What do you want me to do? Right? Everybody was kind of asking for that clarity, and he wouldn't answer me. He just wouldn't answer. He would kind of talk around it, and but he wouldn't answer. And I was frustrated and angry, and later I realized it was, he knew that he couldn't answer, because whatever he had told me, if for any reason that didn't happen, I would have been frustrated and disappointed and felt like I let him down.
Right. Yeah.
Because he
was
didn't
protecting
answer.
You even in that moment. Yeah.
He really was. And I think he knew that. I wish he could have told me that, because I probably would have, I don't know if I would have understood it, but
I don't
anyways.
think it makes it any easier because I went through a similar experience I had a sick child when I was going through a divorce and I didn't have anyone to bounce it off of. Like,
Yeah.
what medical decisions do I make? And my mother would say, I can't tell you what to do. I can be here and listen and go through it with you, but I can't tell you because I can't be responsible for that decision. I can't make you feel like you trusted the wrong person. It didn't make me feel any better in the moment, but now that it's over, I totally get it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Same
So I
kind
think
of
it's an
thing.
interesting
So
thing as adult parents with adult children when you have to let them
you got to let them
go.
live. And
Yeah.
so he gave me that freedom, I
That's a
guess.
gift, really, even though
Yeah,
it was hard.
it was. And
Mhm.
then things changed. I mean, he passed away. We ran that business. My mother took over. God bless her, Flo. She's still here. She's fighting a good fight right now for her health. But she doubled the size of the company in 5 years, right? As a woman chairman leader,
Love it.
she stomped on the gas pedal and took and said, "Let's go." And we grew that business in a beautiful way. She did a great job as a leader herself. So I inspired by her, right? And we were,
Mhm.
it was a whole organization that did the work, but she was a great leader. So, and then she wound up, my brother died in a car accident, I guess the next tragedy that affected my life. And we came through out of that. My mother came out of that and said, I want to retire because she's like, I'm done with all this and get me out of here. And then we wound up selling the whole business, which was an unexpected but fantastic outcome. So, living through life as things happen and you just have to respond. So I feel lucky that he didn't set me up for frustration and failure, even though I was frustrated at the time.
Yeah.
And it allowed me to really recognize that, look, life is going to change. You don't know what's coming. And all you can do is the best with what you have at the time. Try to make a good decision, try to take care of the people around you. And he showed me those values, I guess, and he lived those values. And so I'm grateful. I feel lucky. I don't know if that answers your question, but
Well, I
Yeah.
think it does.
Yeah.
It's important to recognize those things and to see people as fully formed humans. I talk to my children about who they date. They need to date a fully formed human. And at their ages,
good
they don't
advice.
exist yet.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a fully formed 20-year-old,
Yeah, I've got teenagers right now, 2 girls, and they're lovely, but it's teenage time and it's challenging. It's
We
normal,
have had as
healthy.
many as 4 teenagers at one time.
Yeah.
We're mostly,
boy.
now we're getting into the 20s, so it's better. But wine was my best friend for a while.
Yeah, well, you do what you got to do. It's
During those teenage years.
nothing's
That's
easy.
funny. That's funny. So, John, this fathering that you had, parenting in general, your mom sounds like she was fantastic
Yeah.
also.
Yes.
So you delayed becoming a father, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I had my first at 21 and the next one at 24, but you delayed having children. Was part of that thought process, I want to be able to spend time with my kids, or how did you come to that? Or
Well,
was it just coincidental that you chose to?
yeah, I think it's a series of things, but again, I believe there's really no coincidences out there. But
Mhm.
I think it was a combination of a couple things. Number one, I had a great job. Our family business was big and complex, and there was opportunity for me everywhere I looked. And I wanted to work hard. I wanted to do a good job,
Mhm.
and that was a big motivator. There was big opportunity, so I worked really hard, and I traveled a lot. And it was easier for me to just be kind of on my own, so to speak, as focused on my career in my 20s after college. The other thing that happened is when my dad died in 94, I was 26. My brother died in 97, I was 29. There was a period of time where I didn't want to get married because they weren't going to be there, which is
that makes sense. Yeah.
illogical as that
Yeah.
is. So I put it off. Like, well, I'm not going to deal with it. I'm just not going to. I'll do it later. It'll happen. I always wanted to get married. I knew I'd get married. I wanted to be a dad. There was no question of, do I want that? I just didn't want it now because they're not here. So I'm going to wait. And it was an unconscious motivator to delay things. And so I finally got through that later, and thankfully had a fabulous girlfriend that was patient with me and helped me understand, why are you waiting? And
Yeah.
it was really a conversation with my mother. Believe it or not, it was at one of our business brand conferences. We had dinner at the like the night before the convention. We were all in town for the convention, and everything's revved up and pretty much ready to go. So my mom and I were having dinner, and this came out of our conversation because we both missed my dad and brother. They would have been there at the table with us.
That's tough.
Yeah, it was powerful. But after I recognized that, then it was like, well, okay, great. I get the rest of my life. There's a lot of things they're going to miss.
Yeah.
But you accept that. It's life.
Yeah.
But
I think
still
so many of us go through things like that when we experience grief. I mean, I had a nephew who died young and had seizure disorder, which my youngest son had at that time. And I spent a lot of time thinking, just get past 8, because that was how old, and it didn't, I knew, things don't make sense when you're thinking them. It's an irrational emotional reaction, but you still have to work through all those emotions that allow you to be free of that.
It's true.
And thank goodness. But it's completely understandable. And I think we don't talk about those things enough. Like, you can be irrational and know that you're doing it and still not be able to really get it under control.
True.
So having that family support and having that community that can kind of push you through that and grieve together and get you to that next phase so that you can experience all the things your dad would have wanted you to experience is important. Right?
Yeah.
It does sound like it was a pivotal moment at the table there, that there's a grieving and the missing of your brother and the missing of your dad, and you and your mom kind of processing this big event where normally, they would be there, and then also knowing tomorrow we get up and we got to continue on.
Yeah. It's work. It was the conference, the annual convention, all our people, all our franchisees. I mean, that was the center of our universe for work,
Yeah, and
Great.
when you think about, I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes there, John, because everything is a reminder. Everything is a reminder. Your work, your colleagues, the businesses, the stores, everything
All
is
the
a reminder.
franchisees. I mean, we had franchisees. Our business, when we sold it, was 36 years old. We were an old, mature brand and successful brand. We had multiple categories, multiple segments, brands, and over 1,000 units. It was fantastic business, and I miss it sometimes. I miss the people.
I bet. But your life moved on, and now you're using much of what you learned from your father, from being in the business yourself, from your mom, and you are now helping other franchisors create those win-win-win scenarios that you've talked about. So you not only got the education through experience, but you turn that into wisdom, which you can then impart on others. That's got to be very gratifying too, to watch others.
Yeah, I appreciate you kind of explaining it that way, but it's true. And I can see with some of my clients where I've been around for a while, you can see the impact over time. I say I don't take credit for it. I didn't do the work. They create their brands, they create their business, they run their companies. I show up, I ask a lot of questions, I give some ideas, I make some introductions, and I leave, and then I come back and say how'd it go. And we help with advice and perspective and coaching or whatever the relationship is. But it is gratifying to see these brands and these businesses and these individuals really grow and achieve success at a higher level than they probably expected. And to know that I had some tiny bit of that, helping create that outcome is gratifying. It's fun. It's rewarding. And then you think about the impact, if these brands do well, those franchisees benefit, those employees, those industries. I mean, the ripple effect of success inspirational sometimes. You can have a tiny impact, but a wide reach, and
Mhm.
it's fun.
Legacy.
So-
I call it legacy.
Absolutely. And speaking of tiny impact and large reach, the next project that we need to address, because Father's Day is coming up,
Yeah.
is another way that I see you building legacy and leaning it really hard into all of the relationships that you've had with your father, with your brother. How do you continue
Yeah.
that kind of feeling and legacy and relationship? So tell us about Father's Eve and how that got started, because I think this is really amazing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Father's Eve is, of course, the night before Father's Day. And the way I explain it is, everybody knows that Father's Day is the third Sunday in June. It's a national holiday. It's a day for dads and family. That's Father's Day. Father's Eve is the night before, just for the dads. So think of it like a dad's night out. And it started as an accident, believe it or not, in my garage in St. Paul, Minnesota. Actually, about 10 years ago. This year, we counted with our fingers that this would be our 10th time doing a Father's Eve. So
Love it.
I guess it's our 10-year anniversary, although we didn't realize that until about a week ago. And the event is here in a couple of days. So
You've got some balloons to buy.
yeah, right.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Yeah, we're having a great time with it. Father's Eve is all about dads getting together for fun and maybe do some good. And we say we connect, we share, and we celebrate fatherhood. So it started as an accident, and the backstory, I'll kind of go quick, but the backstory is my wife and I moved with our lovely daughters in 2011 after that recession came through. And I said, now's a good time to upgrade. We needed a little more space, and I wanted a bigger garage. So we moved to a new house, different house, I should say, in St. Paul, an old house, beautiful house, had been redone, but the garage was terrible. So there was an original little tiny garage, and I had a contractor knock that down and build a real garage. And like, I wanted a real garage. I want to put all my stuff in one place. And so this was a party to christen the new garage. And back in these days, my wife and I were flipping calendars when you had a week at a glance and you turned the page. And I was looking for an open Friday or Saturday night to invite some buddies over. And I want to show off the garage and like, here's where we moved to. It was only a few miles away, but I want to invite my friends over. So we're flipping the calendar, and the only open night was that Saturday in June. And I turned the page and it's Father's Day on Sunday. I said, well, that makes it Father's Eve. We're going to call it Father's Eve. And so I invited about 25 guys over, and it just happened to be that Saturday. And we called it Father's Eve, kind of like, haha, it's a joke.
Mhm.
Well, we had a great time. And I had to send my wife and kids away. Actually, I said, for me to really relax, I need you guys to go away. And she was like, okay, I kind of get it, And so she actually went to her dad's house, and he came up to my garage party, right? My father-in-law came. I'm like, come on up. So she stayed down there with him, and we had a great time at home in my garage, bunch of guys. They say we had, 3 kegs of beer and 2 bags of chips. And that was it. I mean, there was nothing. Music was a little too loud, it was perfect. And the next year we did it again, and they said, this is great. So more guys showed up, and we added some food, and some guys brought cigars. I think that year we had bags. We were throwing the bag, like cornhole games,
Mhm.
Then
Love that game.
The third year it was getting out of control. There were guys coming that I didn't know. And I thought, well, this is great. My friends are bringing their other friends. People want this. It's Father's Eve. And so it was getting bigger, and we outgrew the garage. So we moved it to a bar the next year, and we made it a fundraiser for charity. And we raised $10,000 for charity,
Wow.
which
Wow.
was like, wow. And we got some media attention. One of my buddies from college helped, and we got on the TV and the newspaper. And so I said, well, I've got something to do here. So I got a few guys to help me. There's a few friends of mine that I guess were, associates or partners in the project, because I said, I can't do this alone. So we trademarked it and we licensed it for free. So we actually own the holiday, Father's Eve, and we license it online for free. There's no credit cards or
Fees.
anything. It's what's called a conditional license. So these guys, we want people to host events. We don't call it a party. It might turn into a party. It might look like a party, but we call it an event. And there's 5 rules, 5 simple rules. Keep it clean. Focus on dads, right? It's about all the dads. We're inclusive, right? All kinds of dads. Have something to do, some kind of game or activity, because guys stand around, they need something to do. Work together. We have a community of event hosts all over the country. We've been doing this now for years. And then don't screw it up is really the last rule, because some idiot does
Always a
something
good rule to have at
stupid,
the end.
you know? We're just a bunch of guys. And so in 2016, we licensed it. We did it in, I think, 12 cities that first year. And a lot of those were friends of mine from IFA. I'd say, hey, man, I need you to throw a party on Saturday and call it Father's Eve, you know? All right, sure. So in 2016, that's when we started the licensing, 17, 18, and 19. By 2019, we were at 60 cities. And I had a couple in Canada and the one in Mexico. We had one in Costa Rica and a guy over in Scotland, and guys picking it up on social media, you know, but it's
Right.
one night a year. So it's a what I call a hyper seasonal business, right?
Yeah. So when you say inclusive, all kinds of fathers, what do you mean by that?
Well, any kind of dad. I mean, there's dads, obviously, who work from home, or there's working dads, there's stay-at-home dads, there's divorced dads, there's widower dads, there's gay dads, there's trans dads, believe it or not. There's all kinds of dads and granddads, anybody, and really anyone who wants to celebrate fatherhood.
Yeah.
I've had guys ask me, well, I don't have any kids. I said, well, okay, then did you like your dad, you know, celebrate? I had a guy say my dad was a jerk. I don't like him either. And I said, well, then why don't you celebrate the father you didn't have? You know, I don't know. You know, come
That's
on.
so funny.
You know,
But that's
so
true though.
Yeah.
So many are father figures. We have a friend who practically has helped another woman raise a child. They're not married. He's not technically a stepfather, but he is her father. You know, so I think being open to that, you know,
Yeah.
and including anybody who wants to celebrate the idea of influencing.
We think that
kids,
fatherhood is so important, right? And we all take it for granted. I mean, as a dad, I'm like, yeah, I want to be a dad. I can't wait to be a dad. I love being a dad. It's the most important thing I'll ever do is raise some kids that go on to do wonderful things. And so I love being a dad. And what I've realized is focusing on Father's Eve creates an environment where guys can come together and really with no agenda, right? We're not selling anything. We're not preaching anything. We're not saving anybody. We're not solving anyone's problems, right? We're there to just relax, have a good time. We might do some charity fundraising. We have some games. Now we do it like a bags tournament thing, which is kind of fun. And we have some speakers now. We went online last year, so we were forced to do the COVID thing. And we did a live toast from my garage. And that was kind of fun. And so this year we're online and in person. So for 21 here, we're back to what I'm learning is a hybrid event, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but we have simultaneous events. This year, I think we're up to 25 cities and online. So we'll have a live stream and then they'll cut to the live toast. Now, the most important thing about a Father's Eve event is the toast, right? And we figured out early that on New Year's Eve, you got to wait till midnight. It's too late. We can't wait that. Father's Eve, we back that up to 8:00.
Nice.
So at 8:00, we stop everything and we say, grab a fresh beverage or whatever. We count it down 10, 9, 8, 7, just like New Year's Eve. Father's Eve, we do that at 8:00 local time. So we figured out, I think this year, how to do it live in multiple cities in the same time zone. And then the program runs online and then we cut back the next hour to the next wave of cities in that time zone doing their 8:00 toast. So we got a new twist on it this year. We're going to try.
So now you get to have like at least 3 or 4 toasts, right?
Yeah, well, we'll do it 4 times. Where I am in Minnesota, we're Central Time, so we'll do 7:00 for the East Coast guys. I got friends in New York and Washington and Miami, and I mean they're all up and down the East Coast. So you know, why not? It's fun. The idea is there's guys everywhere doing this, and it's like any other holiday. I don't want someone to have to pay to go to Father's Eve. It should be fun. It should be free. It's Father's Eve.
Now, are
This is
all of your groups that are doing it raising money for charity, or is that an individual thing? Because I'm sure there are all varying stages of
Yeah,
attendees.
it's a choice. We can't require that as part of
Right.
the license or anything,
Yeah.
but we encourage it. We
Mhm.
have a relationship with the Children's Miracle Network hospitals.
Mhm.
They're a fabulous group. They have 170 hospitals all over the place, and one here in the Twin Cities, but most of the cities where we are, they have a children's hospital there or nearby. So
Mhm.
we think they're a great partner. So we recommend them, and we have a link and all that on the websites and stuff. But there are some groups that do local charity fundraiser, and I say, if you don't send me the money, we're not a charity, and we're not raising money for ourselves. But so some of the groups do. What I do know, we added up. Someone told me, I think it was $30,000 over the last 6 years.
That's amazing.
So that's worthy. I'd like it to be more. I'd like it to be a lot more. And I think as it goes, it could be, and it could become one of the visions, I guess. You got a lot of ideas. That's easy. The execution is always the hard part, right? I get that. But one of the ideas is to make Father's Eve like a day of service,
Oh,
where the
nice.
dads would go out on Saturday afternoon and like clean up the playground, or go paint the fence, or do something, volunteer as a group. A bunch of dads show up to take care of something.
Mhm.
And then when it's over, we celebrate Father's Eve with a grill and a keg of beer or whatever, some easy kind of get together, celebrate that, what we just served. And now we're celebrating. And somehow I think then the next day is Father's Day. It all kind of fits.
Yeah, it's
that's
perfect.
a great vision you have, John. There's something about when we have a similar purpose, in this case, paint a fence, fix a playground, whatever it is, where we have a similar purpose and we work towards that creates a bond between individuals, in this case, men coming together. And who knows, you're changing thought processes there, that men coming together can accomplish a lot. It may just be a playground today, but we don't know what it's going to be a few years from now. What
Right.
else can men coming together do in a community and in the lives of others? I mean,
Powerful.
it's powerful to think of it by putting this idea of fatherhood as a priority, especially in a world that kind of downgrades the father, which bothers me, right?
Yeah.
And many, So
we don't think, as much as I laugh at Homer Simpson, right? He's not doing dads any favors.
he's not doing dads any favors.
So there's some challenges out there. And I mean, there are certainly a lot of other issues and challenges around the world today, but we're just trying to do our part. We think dads being intentional about being a better dad, even if it's just a tiny little awareness, that we don't take it for granted, that we actually, wow, I need to be a better dad, or I want to be a better dad, or I can be a better dad, or I can help someone else be a better dad. And that's a good thing for everybody. It's a win-win-win. Everybody wins.
Yeah.
It is.
To wrap it up nicely, John, you got your win-win-win.
Oh, thank you.
So John, we are having to wrap up this interview. Do we have time for John to tell us any kind of stories? One party that was particularly interesting. Do we have time for that? So do you have any Father's Day Eve stories that girls are allowed to hear?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty tame, to be honest. I mean, we have a good time. We get after it, but there's nothing in there I would be embarrassed. I haven't seen anything like that. Any of mine.
Tell us a story about what you guys.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story about a group of guys. I think it was from North Carolina, and this was a few years ago. It might have been 2017 or 18. A few years back. Anyway, after the event on Monday, after Father's Day, and then Monday, I would put out an email or call the guys and say, how'd it go? And send me a picture, right? I'd say, please take a picture, because nothing happens if there's no pictures. Mm-hmm. So these guys are sending pictures and making calls back to me. And I got a call from a guy in North Carolina, I think it was. And he said, I want to tell you how much fun we had at our Father's Eve. I'm like, yeah, tell me about it. What happened? He said, well, we were at this brewery or some restaurant or whatever. And he said, there were 5 guys. We sat down and we talked for 3 hours.
Wow.
And I said, no way. That never happened. I said, come on, what'd you do? Really, what happened? He's like, no, man, there were 5 of us. We didn't know each other. We didn't know what to expect. So we just said, hey, Father's Eve. Yeah, I'm here for that too. And so we sat down and everyone, they just talked about being dads, about being husbands, about, life in general. And he said, now we're friends. We're talking to each other. We know we connected and we're doing it again next year, which I think they did. And I don't know if they're doing it this year or whatever, but he said, it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't Father's Eve.
Right.
He said, thank you. And the guy was being grateful. He's like, thank you for making that happen. And I said, man, I didn't do a thing. He said, it's whoever the guy who put it on the website or did the local guy is who you should thank. He said, yeah, but he wouldn't have done it if you hadn't started it. So he said, I want you to know it's having an impact. I'm like, wow.
What
Thank
a
you
beautiful
for
story.
telling me that. So, and this was like, I didn't believe the guy. 5 guys sitting around a table for 3 hours does not happen, right?
Bonding, right?
Yeah, and there's no TV going. It's not like they're not watching a show or a game or a race or something.
Which is really the greatest compliment you can have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I knowing that, and if that happened once, it's happened a lot more. And I see it at our event, our Father's Eve here, because these are a lot of my buddies. We started and I see guys who come back year after year, and it's like, hey man, how you been? I remember you from last year, and they're making friendships, they're making connections, and they realize that they're out there. They got friends, and it's a community, I guess, in a different dimension, but there's a lot of good that comes from it, just getting guys together, really with no agenda. I think that's maybe what makes it work is there's nothing to it, Yeah. We're having fun.
So John, if people wanted to learn more, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you or find out more, or where can we direct them?
Well, the Father's Eve is fatherseve.com. It's all over the social media, especially now. And then my day job or my work is johnnyfranchise.com. And that's easy to find. I'm all over the socials on that too. And I'll just throw out my cell phone because I don't mind. It's published, and I pretty much answer almost every call if I can. My cell phone is 612-868-0745. And I'm in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. And, I love to help people. I love to talk to people. I like to share ideas. If I can help, I'd like to try to find out how. And if not, I'll try to point you in the right direction anyway. So.
Thank you, John. Okay, as we wrap up, does anybody notice John in his white t-shirt and the black? He looks like a father. I got Episcopalian. Look at you, John.
Make a cuss square out of it.
There we go. Okay.
Oh, that's funny.
Funny? But not that kind of father, guys. Okay, we're talking about.
I'm not impersonating a priest. No, I respect the priest. No.
Thank you, John, for being with us and for all that you do for
lady.
franchising and all you're doing for fatherhood. We applaud you.
Well, thanks. I appreciate the chance to share my story and get me thinking about it and really putting it into perspective again. It's always helpful. And I appreciate the opportunity to share with your audience. There's a lot of good people doing a lot of good work out there. And I appreciate just the opportunity to share my stories too.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.